Wincy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. So Wincy spider went up the spout again.
Welcome back, guys, and I'd like to welcome our new subscribers and our new listeners. You guys are showing great support. Thank you very much. Jillian and I both really appreciate all the support we're getting. Keep it coming. Share us with your friends. Talk about us at the water cooler. So today we're going to be talking about Dybbuk boxes. Jillian and I had spent a pretty good chunk of time one evening looking at YouTube videos trying to figure out if this is something real or is it bullshit. Pretty much the majority I was able to find, if there was any backstory related to them, it was also related to an order form. So
A what form?
an order form. Like every website that had like a history of what Dybbuk boxes are supposed to be, they also sold them and had an inventory. So for those of you that don't know what a Dybbuk box is, it's supposed to be a box that a evil spirit is sealed into, and it's sealed in with candle wax, and usually there's like sigils or religious markings on it of some sort, signifying that there's something sealed in it. Now, you can find 1,000,001 videos on YouTube and go down that rabbit hole yourself if you want to. Most of the videos are all the same. It's usually one or two people there opening a box. They open it up. They say it stinks. And then sometimes in the background, some weird stuff starts happening. I've never seen a video of like unexplainable weird stuff though, like pictures falling or groans in the background. You can edit that shit in. So
Right.
hard to say that it's real. Did you find anything credible in any of the stuff we found?
No, I didn't. Because anytime that we would see anything, it literally could have been whoever they were with. Like, remember that one where we seen the shadow or whatever, but that could have been somebody else's shadow.
Or edited in? I mean, you
Right.
do some pretty cool stuff editing pictures for our YouTube. You can fake a lot. I mean, you could fake somebody could be on the other side of a wall and hit it and knock a picture down to where it looks like it just falls by itself, or strings attached, or people get creative on faking stuff.
Yeah, they do. Sometimes they do it so good you can't really tell, but that's the problem.
Now, there was one that was supposed to be like the first occurrence of somebody talking about one of these boxes and it like changing hands. It was a wine box that was supposed to be from a Holocaust survivor that was haunted or has a evil spirit trapped inside or something of the sort. And they do have it in a museum. I do believe it's owned by that. Help me out here.
Zach Bagans?
Yeah, like he has a haunted
he has
object
the actual
museum.
the Dybbuk box
Yeah,
from
he
that
has
story.
yes, that. But even that has a little bit of where you're not quite sure if it's bullshit or not, because the person that came forward with this story was a writer and also sold rights to a movie. So he made money off it, serious money off this story. And I did find a video or a couple of videos showing Post Malone going to visit it. And from
Oh,
my
I
understanding is it
remember
hasn't
that.
been open. And he did have like a series of bad luck after visiting that box. And the story that I found was from the perspective of the guy who bought it, and that he sold it to Zach, and it's in the Honda Museum, and he mentioned that he still feels the box call to him, and he's still drawn to like go visit it and things like that. But again, he's a writer, this is his job to make up things that people get sucked into. And obviously he's good at it because Hollywood responded.
Right.
So, but with, you know, is it possible he slipped Post Malone some money and was like, we talk some shit? You know, that's possible. He could be just an acting gig for Post Malone, or maybe the bad stuff really did happen to him, and
Or maybe
they're
that specific box is actually
right.
like real.
The thing that gets me about that story, though, is it hits like every one of our insecurities and fears all at once. Like it's from Nazi Germany, it's from a Holocaust survivor. So automatically you're drawn to that because most people are drawn to that time period because such a worldwide tragedy happened that and nobody can quite understand how it happened. You're automatically drawn to stories if they say it's a Holocaust survivor or it has something to do with Nazi Germany or any of that. People are automatically gonna pay attention and also be a little scared because most people are aware that the Nazis also had ties to the occult and things like that. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
you didn't know that there's a whole you can go down that YouTube rabbit hole too, like for
So many
days.
rabbit holes you could go down.
And just starting with this one story,
Right.
but that was the first thing that caught me is okay, if this is from a writer who is making up a story to gain attention to further his career and happens to have a spooky old box that may or may not be from a Holocaust survivor. Now, I would be completely drawn to buying something for one because I think the entire world has guilt towards Holocaust survivors. Like everybody feels they need to do something for them because for that period of time nobody did anything for them. That's kind of an automatic response for me. I don't know about anybody else, but I would be more willing to buy something that may not be worth the price from a Holocaust survivor and then be able to tell people, this item made it through the Holocaust or whatever. But he seems to have taken it a step farther than that, than just, touting, this is from the Holocaust to this has got a haunted spirit attached to it and it affects your life. But on the other hand, if Zach did buy it and put it in his haunted objects museum, did he do it as a piece of movie memorabilia? Or did he do it because he verified that, yeah, there's some not explainable shit emanating from that box?
I would like to go to his museum. It would be fun. A couple YouTubers I've watched have gone to his, but I think that they stayed away from the Dybbuk box. I don't even think that they went to that area where he keeps it. I'm not sure.
You know me, I'm gonna want to poke the bear.
I just think it would be interesting. I mean, well, that and he's got a whole bunch of cool stuff there, but that one for sure. I would be one of the people that would be very curious to see it. But my question is, how do you trap these evil spirits in a box? And how do you know that you trapped them in a box?
That's my other leans more towards the entire thing. I mean, I do believe that there is a mythology about a Dybbuk, which is explained as an evil spirit in Jewish culture. But do you really believe that you can trap energy? Because that's what we're talking about here is energy. You can trap energy into a box, a physical box with wax and drawn some little religious things on the outside of it.
Yeah, I was wondering also, how does the wax, I know you say it seals it, but how does wax seal it? I mean, really, it's not sealed though.
Right, it's not anything tangible that you're trying to seal into it. So that's another where I lean a little bit more towards bullshit, because
It's like they just put wax all over it to make it look creepy.
right.
They're
And
like,
drew
look
some
here. It's been sealed.
drew some creepy sigils, and put some crosses, fancy crosses on it, or whatever's on, whatever you may
Right.
find. That I'm not buying. I believe I have experienced a demon and actually have had that encounter. And what I have seen that force manipulate in the physical world, that box is not going to contain it. I don't give a shit what you write on it.
Yeah, I don't think. To me, it doesn't seem like we would be capable of trapping a demon anywhere.
An exorcism would be sending it out, casting it out.
Mm-hmm.
I guess a good question, if anybody knows the answer to this, other than like the Exorcist movies, because we've all seen this in the movies, but actual have real exorcism knowledge. If you can answer this question for me, put it in the comments or send us an email. What happens to that spirit once it's exorcised? Does it just float up in the air and go back to hell where it belongs? Or do they capture it, or assumingly capture it in something?
That's a good question. I've never actually thought about it that way.
Because if they just release it, that means it's just going to go to somewhere else.
Right. Then all they did was take it from one person, and now it's able to go to another.
Right.
Yeah, I don't even think in the movies they do that, do they? They like it. The entity just like goes away.
Constantine, they addressed that. Remember the mirror, and then he breaks the mirror.
It's been a while since I've seen that movie.
I love that movie. But and Constantine's the only movie I've actually seen them address that. Of what do they do with it once they get it out? Because in that movie he traps it in a mirror and then he breaks the mirror, or is the idea that it's sent back to where it came from? I mean, I've never experienced an exorcism. I've never seen one outside of Hollywood, so I don't have
I'm
any
still on the
knowledge.
fence about those in general as well. I don't know how real those are, but
I did see a movie, and again, this is a movie, not real life, but it was a found footage type movie. So those suck me in. I don't know why,
maybe
but
me
I know
too.
they're not real. But I still get all sucked in like I'm really watching it. But
it makes you think that it is.
the main focus was what the movie was about was they're trying to help the daughter of a understand the difference between mental illness and thinking you're possessed and actually being possessed. And they brought her to an exorcism, and there was some exorcist shit going on, like limbs bending the ways that they don't go, and speaking in languages she shouldn't know. She's like, the girl in the bed was like 12, 13-year-old girl, and she's speaking a dead language. Not possible. um so the person that they were trying to make understand before they went forward with her, that this is what a demonic possession actually looks like, and what you're showing us looks more like mental illness. Ended up in the movie that the mother really was possessed by a demon, and it was like just really good at playing it off because it had been possessing her for so long. But really good movie. I don't remember what the name of it was.
I was just about to say, what's it called?
That I told you about this recently. I told you what the name of it was, but I can't think of it right now.
I don't remember.
It was a person's name was in it. Like,
oh, that doesn't even ring a bell.
What happened, like what happened to, or something like
was
that.
It
but
like a oh well, I mean that's not important, but
anyway,
is it like a new or old movie?
If anybody
that's not important.
If anybody knows the name of the movie, put it in the comments and let us know somehow if you know what movie I'm talking about or have seen it. That it starts out as a woman was being exorcised by two priests, and her husband was present, and the exorcism went wrong, and she killed everybody that was in the room with her. So she was found insane, and she was transferred to Rome, to a psychiatric hospital in Rome. This is an American citizen. So her daughter, her surviving daughter, wanted pretty much her question her whole life until she was an adult was, if my mother's an American citizen, then why does she have to be in Rome to serve out her sentence? It doesn't make any sense unless she really is possessed. And that's kind of like where she goes to Rome and starts investigating, gets people to help her, so on and so forth. But it was a really good movie for a found footage movie. But that was my point in that all that long drawn out nonsense was that the Vatican does have criteria that you have to meet to be exorcised.
Right.
And even in every movie you've seen like where they have priests come out, they come check them out, and they're like, oh yeah, that's there's something going on there. We're gonna move forward.
That's pretty
But
fucked
they
up.
but they have to show evidence, and they have to get approval
Yeah, just
before
like in The Conjuring, like he did the exorcism at the
church.
end, like without their permission, because the Vatican didn't give them permission until like after, but they still had to wait for the permission.
So there has to be protocol for this, and like procedure. Like, okay, we say this prayer first, and then we do this many power Christ compels you, and then we do. There has to be a training for one, because nobody just wakes up knowing how to do an exorcism, and I've never seen that written in the Bible. So there has to be policy by the church and like set criteria and set things that they do. But nobody seems to know what happens at the end of it. Like I've never it's portrayed in movies all kinds of different ways like we just talked about. But if anybody actually knows in an actual Catholic sanctioned exorcism, what do they do with the demon? Is it just released in for someone else, or
Are
is
they
it
banishing
contained?
it to hell?
Right. Where does, because that would give credibility to the Dybbuk box if they do contain it somehow, and like in the Vatican catacombs, there's millions of little boxes of all the demons that they've caught. That would make sense to me and give credibility to the Dybbuk box, because people steal stuff from the church all the time and sell it. You can, and some certain black markets, you can buy pieces of like, I don't want to say the Dead Sea Scrolls, but like the equivalent to, old, possibly religious artifacts that were cut up and sold off to the highest bidder, that were either stolen from people or somehow pilfered from the church. That maybe that could be a possibility, that at the end of an exorcism they are contained and blessed and housed in the church, and the real ones are somehow stolen from the church and sold on the black market. Or on the other side of the coin, that it's all bullshit. Or could it be a mixture of both, that there really is real ones out there that people have put on the black market and are releasing into the world, or people have just found a new creative way to make money from suckers on the internet? And most of the ones that I see or that we watch that were buying these off the internet, they weren't exactly cheap. They're like 80 to, I found one on a website that was almost $1,100.
Yeah, they're very expensive. So, I mean, it's very believable to say that people are literally doing it just for money.
Yeah, I kind of lean, unless I can get, somebody to answer my religious questions about exorcisms and what happens to demons after they're exorcised.
True.
To even lean credibility towards whether or not that's a thing, like whether or not that's something that can actually be done, or
Well, I know that,
or not.
I know, like, possessions can be haunted. Well, I mean, I don't know for a fact, but you know what I mean? Like, there are, objects that are haunted. I mean, wouldn't that kind of be the same thing?
This is just my opinion on the difference between a haunted object and what a Dybbuk box would be for me. Is a haunted object seems to be something that the spirit willfully attaches themselves to. A Dybbuk box seems more like a prison.
Okay, well that does make more sense if they're capturing it, like trapping it in that box.
Have you ever seen the sequel to The Shining?
Sequel to The Shining?
Sleep? Yeah, I think it's called Dr. Sleep.
No, I've never even actually seen the full Shining.
In that movie, Dr. Sleep, it's about the little boy in The Shining, all grown up. And do you remember the caretaker guy that tells that talks to him in his head in the kitchen and lets him know that he's like him, and that guy, I'm talking about?
I'd have to see it again.
Well, in Dr. Sleep, he's dead. He dies in The Shining. But he comes to him as an adult and explains to him how to make pretty much the ghost from the hotel stop following him. Because as an adult, he still sees the ghosts. Like, they still mess with him as an adult in his home hundreds of miles away. So he teaches them to imagine a box and lock them in the box in his mind. And when we started researching Dybbuk boxes, that was the first thing I thought of, was that movie. Like, where did that come from in that movie? Because we all know Stephen King, he does his research when it comes to the fucked up. So that makes me wonder if, when he was writing that book, if he stumbled upon some history that brought that in to Dr. Sleep.
Probably, because that sounds like a Dybbuk box.
But it wasn't a physical box.
Still.
It was in his mind. But it would be the same concept. He locked them away, and they were confined, and they couldn't get out. And he was actually locking the spirits in his mind, because that's how he defeats the bad guy in the movie, is he lets her in his brain, and she unlocks those boxes, or he does, one of the two, and all the bad ghosts of the hotel are there. So very much Dybbuk box, like, just, Stephen King's got to take it to the next level and have it locked in someone's mind, and not a physical box. But that would be why he's the master of horror.
Can get to it.
I said, no, that's why he's the master of horror, because he takes stuff to the next level and really messes your mind up. But, so I guess in pop culture you can find like little nods to it. Even a genie is, in a sense, a Dybbuk.
That's what I was thinking when we first started talking about it. It made me think of Genie in a Bottle, because
that's what a genie, according to that mythology, is a jinn, which is a type of spirit, locked in a bottle.
It definitely makes me curious, because like I would be very tempted to buy
the only
one.
way I'm buying one or opening that is if we go to a damn church and do it. I need this
like
whole
in a
place
different place
sanctified.
that's like not my home, but it would make me very curious though.
I'm gonna need this entire
spot
sanctified, holy watered, all that.
Bring a priest with you. Be like, just come with me.
I'm gonna open it in one hand and have a burning sage and a cross in the other. Like, I'm not messing with you.
Like, we need to put it back immediately when we're done.
And that's another thing that got me about watching these people open them, is even if they are, because most of them somehow have like a personal item or something related to the spirit that it's being caught inside. So whether it's a picture or a watch, or they destroy these boxes. Like, they're in pieces. We watched one where they took it outside and burned it. That didn't seem like a good idea.
Right. They really are. I didn't even think about it that way. So that's probably gonna piss off whatever's in it.
If there really was a spirit trapped inside, and not a nice one,
they're gonna get mad as hell.
I would be if you caught my shit on fire. And the one that we watched that had like pictures and like all these personal items, that one had a watch. He put the watch on, What? No,
Yeah,
sir.
because even if they couldn't contain the spirit or whatever in the box, if they could potentially attach themselves to objects, then guess what? Still possible that there could be a lingering spirit that's attached to the objects that they put in the box.
I am not going to be like the ordering website that I seen that you could buy, and that was supposedly coming from a private collector, and it had this great big elaborate story attached to it. But for people like you and I that like Halloween decorations or everyday house decoration, I could see a purpose for it like that, like being a conversation piece. I'm not actually going to open that damn thing, but
See, I
just
don't think
having
I
it
could
there
have
for,
one in my presence because I would want to open it. I am entirely too curious.
I'm not that damn curious.
I would be
Just
like,
be
oh, I
just
need to know what's in here.
look, to me that's almost like a grate or a coffin. It's in some like stories that I seen attached to them, it was like the only personal items that they owned, or like they're like deeply personal things that were in these boxes supposedly. And to me, opening it would be no different than grave
Well, see, sometimes they look like personal objects, and then sometimes they
robbing.
don't. Like that one, remember, it was like dried up sage or something, and a candle was like the only thing in the box, and a rock.
What if that rock was like their pet rock and like their favorite rock? Like you and I got rocks that we love. You can't be judging on what the item is up to the significance of the person.
Well,
Because
that's true. But the dried up sage, I wouldn't imagine, unless it's like the person's favorite herb.
or the flower, like the flowers that were in there. Because there was dried flowers in there too. What if that
Oh,
was
yeah,
like
that's
flowers
right.
from their like? What if that was like flowers from like their funeral wreath or something like that? And I said to me, that would be no different than almost like grave robbing or opening someone's casket after they've been buried.
Right.
Like almost the opening of it is, to me, would create more fear and disrespect of whatever's in there than it possibly being a bad spirit or a demon that's gonna cause chaos in my life. I would be more concerned about the disrespect I'm showing to it. Because I don't even walk on, like, I pay attention to the way people are buried in cemeteries and, like, try not to walk over people, because I even think that's rude. Like, try to walk in between graves, not over them. And I would never do
Right.
anything like throw garbage down or, disrespect a cemetery. And to me, it's almost the same thing as, like, kicking a headstone or.
Yeah, I would definitely feel bad. It's very tricky walking in cemeteries for that reason.
You don't really know what's disrespectful to the dead. You don't.
Right.
And not only that, like, I've always questioned haunted cemeteries anyway. Just because if I was dead, the last place I want to hang out is the
It's a cemetery. I'd be like, no, I'm gonna go get away from this place. This ain't no fun. Unless you
cemetery.
enjoy scaring the shit out of people. I mean, that would be me.
But you would have more fun doing that in someone's house than you would at the cemetery.
That's true. I'd have fun messing with my siblings. Like, I'd just go haunt them and just scare the shit out of them for fun. Love y'all.
I'd have to say that I would go for the haunting my siblings as well.
Come on, you can't tell me that shit would not be fun.
I actually tell relatives, because obviously I'm extremely curious about the afterlife. That they get told that they have like terminal diseases and stuff like that. Is I have an awkward conversation, and I have had with like every one of them. When you die, if you can somehow come back and tell me that shit's okay. And I give them ground rules, like you're not allowed to mess with me while I'm sleeping, because that's just not fair. And you're not allowed to do jump scares in the mirror when I'm brushing my teeth or washing my face or something like that. I don't want to join you by seeing you.
Right. Could you imagine? Oh, shit myself.
So far, so far the only one that I know and that has came back around and it's more of a sensory thing. Like, I want like full body apparition. Give me something I can't deny.
Right. Not
So
something
far,
you can explain away
I've got
or.
that. Right. Or that I can't prove. That's the main thing is I believe that like if you smell certain smells or if you hear a certain song or things like that, that is messages or acknowledgement of that memory that you have from the other side. But you can't prove any of that.
Right.
The evidence, like that's what I'm asking them to do. If you can come back and give me that picture, you know, that unmistakable picture of this is you, you've been dead for 10 years. No way possible I could be taking a picture of you in my living room right now.
Right. Wouldn't that be cool if you could have like some kind of detection of like smells in a room?
Now, this is something interesting that's happened to me recently. And I did make a Facebook post about a certain smell that I associate with my grandfather, which is sawdust, chainsaw oil, and sweat. That's what he always smelled like when I was growing up. So that's a pretty specific smell. Like unless you're a lumberjack or a woodcutter, you don't walk around smelling like bar oil and sawdust and, sweaty as hell. But I kept smelling that in my house. And I don't live anywhere where there's wood cutting going on to be smelling sawdust or bar oil or recently showered. There was no reason for a sweat smell to be in there either. But my entire house was smelling like that, like I couldn't get away from it. And when I mentioned it to my husband, he looked at me like I was crazy. Like he wasn't smelling it. It was only me.
That's so weird. But I know that happens a lot. That's why I was like, man, it would be so cool if you could just have something that could prove that you're smelling what you're smelling.
I wonder if that type of thing is more of a telepathy thing where they're subconsciously talking to your subconscious to generate that response. And yet you're not actually like it's not an actual smell you're smelling. It's a subconscious response to to something interacting with it that's pulling that memory. Now, every year around the same time of year, that happens where it's overwhelming and I won't even notice the date. I'll notice the month, but I won't notice the date. But it happens right around the time that he died every year. I notice it afterwards. Like after I'm like, why am I smelling this and stuff like that? And then I'll happen to look at the date and it'll either be like the day before or the day of that he died.
I don't recall ever having like smelling anything like from a loved one, but when we were doing the Ouija board and all that stuff, those smells I remember because it reminded me of the smell of a funeral home. You know, that heavy like flower smell that funeral homes have.
So back to Dybbuk boxes. We kind of went off on a tangent about other shit, but
Do we have any final thoughts on the Dybbuk?
my final thought on the Dybbuk box is like I said, I lean more towards that it's bullshit because I don't really believe that you can trap energy in a box with candle wax and some fancy wood burning drawings on the outside.
I agree with that.
But if anybody actually knows if that's possible, let us know. Email us, put it in the comments.
I'm very open as to what things are, but
if everyone that I can find is attached to somebody's monetary gain, I call bullshit.
right.
And that seems to be the case, that even the one that Zach, what's his face, has locked in the museum, that man made a lot of money off of that story.
Mm-hmm.
Which is also what discredits things like the Amityville horror pretty much why people say that's fake is because there was a book and a bunch of movies about it, and they made a whole bunch of and that gives, I think that's valid, that if you are seeking out to become famous over a demonic attack, it kind of seems like it's made up, like, because most people I know that have had true paranormal experiences don't like talking about it. Our
Right. It's like
email
a
is constant.
traumatizing.
Right. Our email is dry because people don't like to talk about it. By the way, guys, if you don't want to be known but still want to tell your story, we won't tell who you are. We'll just tell the story. So you can still remain anonymous. If you don't care, send us the story anyway, but you do have to specifically tell us that you want your name used, or we will not use your name. Our main goal at, on Cryptic Curiosity is to create a community of support. Is, like I said, people I know that have had paranormal experiences, they don't like talking about it. It is almost a traumatic experience for them, and why it's traumatic is because they don't know. So maybe together we can have the conversation and figure out some of those I don't know, or what was it, or help you make sense of it. I think the best way of doing that is just talking it out.
And the email is crypticcuriosityviewers@gmail.com. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, and share, and ring that little bell to get notified every time we upload. And until next time, bye!
Bye.